What's going on, everybody? It's J the ENTJ. I'm back at you with another MBTI video. Basically, I'm making this video because, I watch a lot of MBTI vids, and, you get people, who apparently are having trouble with typing themselves, or they think they've typed themselves correctly, but they're getting a lot of opposition, from people posting comments on their videos saying that they're not the type that they claim, and then they're getting bent out of shape and they're making videos, where they're basically trying to be, they're being defensive, okay, is what they're doing. They're trying to defend their position that, well, just because, a type is, stereotypically displays these characteristics doesn't mean I can't be that type, da 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 da, or, or doesn't mean I can't be another type, or whatever it is. They're in denial, okay, about the type that they are, or they just are confused and they just don't know, and they've taken a guess, and people are trying to, I guess, steer them in the right direction. And don't get me wrong, some people are really misguided, in their advice as far as, trying to type them, because they could be way off too. But generally speaking, when there's a big consensus, okay, that you're at least not the type you claim to be, you're probably not that type. People may not be able to get it exactly right as far as what type you are, even though some people will get it right, even if they're just guessing, because enough people will comment to where somebody's going to get it right. But if there's a consensus that, okay, you're just not at least the type you're claiming, then you're probably not that type, because let's face it, okay, you're not going to get on camera, act like an ESFP, and then say, hey guys, I'm an INTJ. That's not going to fly. So this whole notion that, hey, who are you to say? Listen, if you believe in cognitive theory, okay, Myers-Briggs aside, if you just believe in Jung's cognitive theories, okay, an INTJ is not going to act like an ESFP. It just doesn't work like that. Period. Stereotypes aside. Okay, so I don't want to hear this notion that, well, just because I act like an ESFP doesn't mean I'm not an INTJ. It does mean that, actually. That's the point. Okay? That's why you have these different cognitive functions that cause different personality characteristics. Okay? I mean, if you just don't believe in MBTI, then fine. Stop making MBTI videos. But don't say you believe in MBTI, then make videos being defensive, okay, when people start to question your type. I mean, do a little bit more research, okay? Do a little bit more research. Be completely honest with yourself, okay, as far as what you think you might be, and then go from there. If people are offering suggestions to what you might be other than what you're claiming, don't get all bent out of shape. You don't have to believe them, but you don't need to make videos talking about, well, basically, everybody's different and this, that, and the other. Well, we know that. Okay, not even two people of the same type are exactly the same. That's not even the point. Okay, the point is they're going to have certain characteristics that's going to be similar. Okay, they're going to process information and make decisions in a similar fashion. Obviously, life experience, okay, environment growing up, and all that different stuff, family values and all that are going to play a role. We understand that, or at least anybody who knows how to think understands that. Okay, you don't have to tell us that, because we already know that. Okay, but you're not going to be an SP and then say I'm an NT. That's just not. That just doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't play out like that for a reason. Okay, just be comfortable with the type you are and keep it moving. Like, I've never had any, preconceived notions about what I am. I didn't know what I was. Okay, when I got into this a few years back, I got into it a little skeptical at first, as far as, here's some psychological bullshit, but let me see what it is. It seems interesting, at least. I'll check it out. When I first tested, I tested, okay, as an ESTJ. All right. Now, when I read the description, I said, that sounds fairly accurate. I didn't read anything else, okay, about the other types or the functions or anything at that particular time. So for a while, I was just saying, well, I'm an ESTJ, and I do have dominant TE, so it's understandable that I would maybe think that. Okay, um, I had a situation where I was in a relationship a couple years ago, and the relationship broke up. But I thought that it was going to really do well at first, because I thought that we had a lot in common, and we did in some ways, but we didn't have things in common in the ways that are actually more important. But I didn't know that at the time. So when it broke up, I'm like, what happened? I thought things were really going well. What's going on? So I'm like, what is this? I do remember at the beginning of our relationship, though, me and her talking about our types, and I said I was an ESTJ. She said she was also an ESTJ. Well, at the time, I just didn't know enough about Myers-Briggs to be like, oh, well, no, you're not. But she said she was an ESTJ slash ESFJ. And then when she said that, I'm like, slash? I'm like, huh. I'm like, well, maybe you can be borderline. At the time, I didn't know. When things broke up, I revisited this. I said, let me go back and see what's going on. Because I'm like, if I'm an ESTJ and she's an ESTJ, we should have gotten along much better. No, we did get along fine, don't get me wrong. But there were some core values that were different. Now, we got along fine. We didn't have knockdown, drag-out fights or anything. Like, we only had a couple of heated arguments. Two. Really. Maybe three. That's about it. But there were some things that were obviously different. So I said, let me take a look at this. So I started looking at all the types. Okay, I started looking at all the types, and I said, okay. She said she was ESTJ, ESFJ, so I went to that first. I said ESTJ. I read the description. I said, no. She doesn't have dominant TE. I said, nope, 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 no. I looked at ESFJ. I said, ding, 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 ding. Right there. Dominant FE. I'm like, no wonder, I couldn't relate to a lot of the stuff that she, did. And, her logic. She thought she was really logical. That's the funny part. She'd be like, oh yeah, I'm logical, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, you're not nearly as logical as you think. But I was wondering why she was reminding me of my grandmother. My grandmother's an ESFJ. After I got heavy into this, I ended up typing my grandmother. I said, oh, that explains a lot. And I'm like, man, she acts like my grandmother. And then after doing the research, I'm like, that explains it. That explains it. So then I started looking at me. I said, okay, I typed as ESTJ. Let me see what's really going on here. So I'm going through the shit, and I'm like, ESTJ, I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah. Then I got the ENTJ, and I'm like, the light bulb went off. I said, okay. I said, now it makes sense. I said, I'm much more abstract than an ESTJ ever would be in my mind. When I talk, I don't necessarily talk with a lot of abstractness because my conscious extroverted functions are TE and SE. So I'm speaking logically, with a lot of realism. But internally, I'm nuts. Okay? Internally, I'm thinking about all kinds of ridiculous shit. Okay? And then some people may say, well, how do you know? How can you be sure that you're not an ESTJ? compared to an ENTJ? Okay, good question. And let me run it down for you. Well, basically, okay, they look similar on their face. Okay, but actually, ESTJs communicate with TE and NE. That's why ESTJs are actually pretty witty. They can be hard asses and be intense, but they're actually pretty funny. If you really pay attention to an ESTJ, ESTJs are good, a lot of times joking around. They can be serious, but they can also be quick. Okay, so just pay attention to that. ENTJs aren't nearly as, well, at least in my experience, they can be just as energetic, but they're not nearly as joke oriented to me. You know, obviously there are some ENTJ comedians. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe David Letterman is an ENTJ, so there's that. But yeah. But anyway, but as far as me, I'm definitely more abstract. I'm not very traditional at all. Not traditional at all. I don't care about holidays that much. I barely care about my birthday. Um, you know, institutions, you know, don't impress me that much. Social institutions, they're fine, whatever, but they don't impress me all that much. Um, you know, I'm more progressive in my thought, a little bit more open-minded also. I mean, I'm a judger, don't get me wrong, but I'm actually a little bit more flexible because I like to think about different ways of doing things. So I like possibilities, and I'm also creative on top of that. I used to do a lot of creative writing when I was a kid. I used to, write a lot of stories that were pretty ridiculous. If you were to read them, you would think that I would need to be committed somewhere. They were funny though, but it's like you're not all there, man. But anyway, I'm also intellectually minded, love knowledge. Um, I'm real big with confidence. I have a problem with it with people who I perceive to be incompetent. Maybe they're not, but if I perceive you to be incompetent, respect is going to go down tremendously. Um, you know, I not real big on authority. Like I respect authority if I feel like you know what you're talking about. Once you show me that you basically are incompetent, nah. At that point, I'm going to probably um, you know back away from listening to you too much. But that's the deal with that. And as far as like an INTJ, I'm just too extroverted for an INTJ, and plus I don't live in my head. That's something I do know. I have to talk my ideas out. I gain energy from talking my ideas out, even if it's to myself. So I know I'm not an INTJ. Um, that's that can be confusing for some, but I'm just I'm not that. So basically, after looking at the cognitive functions, looking at the description of ENTJ, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely what it is. I'm not trying to project something onto myself. It's just what it is. I've always been a little bit different. Didn't really know why. Okay, because ESTJs actually fit in a little bit more. You know, there's just more of them out there. You know, just a little bit more socially acceptable. I'm just a little bit more outside the box than that. Okay, but that's the deal with that. So people out there, don't get all bent out of shape and defensive. If people, you know, you know, make comments on your video saying that you may not be the type that you claim to be, because you just may not be. If you're 100% positive, that's fine. Be positive, okay? But if a lot of people are saying that you're not that, you may want to just at least reevaluate it. I haven't had people on my video saying you're not an ENTJ, okay? If I had that many people saying that, I might would reevaluate it. But let's face it, I know what I'm talking about. So I probably wouldn't reevaluate anything. But at the same time, you know, it's something to think about. All right, people, don't get too bent out of shape. Calm down. All right, but if you're acting like an ESFP, you're not an INTJ. So We'll just end it with that. So just reevaluate yourself. Later.